The new scrunchy tights are the Brazilian butt lift of the clothing industry. And I will say that again. The new scrunchy tights, the ones that you see, they kind of accentuate the butt and they have the little scrunchy part where the butt crack is the Brazilian butt lift of the clothing industry, the BBL. And I'm not going to say too much more on that. That was just God speaking through me and getting it out there. What's been going on? A lot has been going on, actually. So this is a really cool opportunity to be able to, give you an update on where we're at, but also give you the much anticipated episode. Yes, it is an episode. Something as part of the series, and it's been something that a lot of you have been asking for, which was how to be angry better. Now, I've done an episode called How to Control Negative Emotions, and that negative emotion that I was mostly speaking about then was anger. And that's what we're going to get into today, but I'll give you a bit of an update on where we've been at. So huge response on the Song of Muscles episode, and he's going to be releasing some more of his t-shirts and some clothing. So when that comes out, I can also share that with you as well. But yeah, great conversation. I've been having some really cool conversations. As a lot of you know who've been following me for a while, last year I kind of just went mostly solo because I wasn't able to get too many guests in, but this year I've lined up so many different guests and really cool people, so we've been having those conversations and it's been giving me so much energy, so that's great. I'm happy to be there. Another thing was last night, actually when you listen to this it would have been last Friday, I went to a CrossFit Open workout. So what happens is that there's this worldwide competition called the Open, and anyone can sign up for it. You can compete if you do CrossFit. You go to a CrossFit gym, you have a workout that everyone in the world is going to be doing if they're registered, and then from there you get a score, then you upload it. And I went back to the CrossFit gym, and just the energy that people have to be working out, and just it's a weird bunch of great people. Like, I did CrossFit for years, competed in CrossFit, coached CrossFit, and I've been to so many gyms around the place, and just the excitement that people get to be physically active. I think that's why I love the environment so much, because in my ideal world, people would froth just to do movement. And that's not movement to be skinnier, that's not movement to look a certain way, but it's just to perform really cool stuff. And if you have to go about your life, you're able and you have the tools to be able to just do something. Like, you don't have to have fear of moving or have fear of partaking in an activity, especially if your friends are going to be doing it, because you have that social aspect. But if they're doing something that you don't feel like you're quite physically capable of doing, you lose that kind of motivation, but you also lose the confidence in yourself to be able to do those things. So, being physically active is more just to be able to partake in things that bring you a lot of joy, not to look a specific way. And that brings me into another thing that actually just happened this morning, and I thought this is kind of pertinent to a lot of where we're at in terms of why people are exercising. I mean, let's be honest. A lot of people are going to say, I have these goals, to feel better about myself, but let's get to the root of it all, okay? And let's be honest with ourselves and just say that a lot of us do it to look a certain way as well. Firstly, the question is, why do we want to look that way? Is it because we've seen someone else look that way and we want to look like that? Or is it because you genuinely believe that achieving this physique is going to bring you some sort of freedom? If you listen to the conversation that I had with Song of Muscles, or Kevin, when he was talking about, getting into the best physique of his life, he said he felt like ass. And just before he goes out there on stage looking like the most muscular Adonis type figure you've ever seen, that's when he felt the worst of all of it. So there's a cost that comes with getting that extreme in terms of your physique. Now, let's be honest, okay? The reason why a lot of us do get into it is because we want to look a certain way. But when you start understanding that your body can do some much cooler things, that's also something that we should be aiming for. And the reason why I bring this up is because there are a lot of challenges that go on. So my first viral video that ever happened was because I was kind of talking about, I was challenging the notion of challenges and how people get into it, and I just didn't believe that these actually built lifestyle habits. And I was pretty blunt, and I was a crusader back at that time. I still stand by my words in terms of making people believe that their worth is based on what they actually lose in terms of weight, because a lot of it, it's the person who loses the most weight, the person who loses the most body fat. And I think that's a really disgusting and wrong way about going about physical activity and promoting physical activity. Yes, it gets people more active, but what does it actually teach them in terms of building a proper relationship with their body? And the reason why this person messaged me is because they know that this is what I do for a living. They know that I kind of, I kind of advised against doing a challenge from the beginning. But if you're going to do it and it brings you joy and it gives you, it gives you motivation to actually get into physical activity and go to your classes and maybe be a bit more aware of what you're eating, then cool. Yeah, maybe go for it. Okay, I'm not going to stop you, but what I can do is help you manage your expectations of it or manage your mindset when it comes to doing this challenge. Now, what I don't believe in is people not losing weight and feeling like you're losing a challenge, because anyone who's doing something to better themselves or doing something in terms of building a new habit to, be more active or actually like induce a few more vegetables during the week or be more ethically conscious with the stuff that you're buying to eat, then absolutely. Go for it. You're learning something or you're doing something that's actually going to be beneficial for yourself. Where it's not beneficial is where you start rewarding people based on the amount of weight that they lost, or it kind of boils it down to how good you are at this challenge is what the scale ends up telling me about you. The thing is, these scales are shite. Bodies are shite in terms of like being able to, sorry, I'm not saying your body's shite. I'm saying the ability of a scale to tell you about your physical performance, about anything else that you're doing physiologically, they're pretty shite, all right? It tells you a very minuscule picture of the overall thing that's happening. So what happened was they obviously use some sort of scale, and this might put some people off, and you might be like, oh my gosh, he's so scientific right now, but this is for everyone who is trying to see what's happening in their life and trying to, and not feeling good about themselves, because I believe that there are intelligent people who also feel this way, but then they're going to be people who have no idea and they just believe that people telling them these numbers has a lot to do with who they are as a person. Now, some of these things, like they just get weight, okay, that's fine, but also weight can come in the means of so many different things. It could be sodium fluctuations, and the more sodium you have, the more water you hold, therefore more water in your body and higher weight. It could also come as just multiple things. Maybe you are losing fat mass, maybe you're losing muscle mass, but it's hard to tell. So what people have done is they've started to bring in these different different sorts of scales, and some of these scales have a bioimpedance analysis, or it sends a signal through your body that basically says, okay, this is how much of these different tissues that you have. Now, if they're not research grade, and research grade, you're probably having to go to some sort of hospital, or you're probably going to have to ingest some sort of dye so that people can see like where it's going through your body, and then they have some sort of magnetic resonance that kind of shoots in and can distinguish the different types of tissue that you have in your body. Most of the times these things are very manipulable. You can manipulate them quite easily. So what bioimpedance does is it sends a shock through your body, and the amount of resistance that it overcomes, or that it has to go through to send the shock all the way back to the other side, that kind of gives you a rough estimate of how much fat or how much of the different tissues, because different tissues are going to conduct electricity quite a bit different. Now, the only problem with this is that it's not even research grade, so it's not calibrated or it's not standardized, but also when it goes through you, we just have to remember that unless you're coming in at the same hydration status, the same activity status, how much caffeine have you had, unless you're controlling all of those things, this doesn't really matter, because if you come in extremely hydrated the next time, it's going to, and just remember that water conducts electricity very, very well. So the impedance that goes through is going to be very low, and the shock that goes through your body, or the electric signal that goes through your body, is going to come back really quickly because you have so much water in your body. That has nothing to do with the tissues that you have in your body, because we've obviously manipulated it with the amount of hydration that you have. So when people come to me, and then I think also having realistic expectations of what types of things different tissue do. So, some people say in the first 2 weeks, oh my gosh, I lost like this much body fat and I put on this much lean body mass, kind of talking about muscle mass. Now, muscle is a very hard tissue to grow. It takes years, and like in a proper year of actually building a lot of mass, you might be lucky if you build raw 1 kilogram of pure muscle, right? Because a lot of it is going to be fat if you're trying to build up muscle, but also if you are on a mission to lose weight, you don't actually take in enough energy to be able to build as much muscle. So you may look like you're building muscle because you're losing the fat and it's actually accentuating your muscles a little bit more, but really that you're not really going to be putting on more lean body mass. Maybe the proportion of lean body mass to fat mass is getting higher because you're losing fat and increasing, and you're losing fat and the same amount of lean body mass has stayed the same. But I don't think you're actually going to be putting on like 2 or 3 kilograms within the space of about 3 weeks. You have contractile tissues that have to be built. It's a protein, and you need to. I mean, muscle is really counterintuitive to the survival of the body, because protein and all that sort of stuff, like, you have to store that, whereas you want to be, it's the least that your body wants to do. So being able to put on that muscle. So being a bit more aware of that sort of stuff. I'm sorry, I try to explain it as simply as possible, but then my mind kind of just jumps straight to like what I already know, and I kind of speak really fast when I go through it. But basically, look at the main things that actually matter to you as a human being. How do you feel? Do you feel lethargic, or do you actually feel like you are getting strength and you're actually having better days because of this? Your overall well-being, your overall energy is higher. When you go into the gym, are you enjoying doing the movements? Are you feeling pain when you do this, or are you actually feeling like it's getting a lot easier as you do it? The relative intensity is starting to get lower, so you can actually push yourself a little bit more. How are your relationships with everyone else? If that's having to suffer so that you can go through and win this challenge, is that really worth it overall in the end? Because at the end of the day, if you're only going for a number on the scale, but you're having to sacrifice all of those other facets of your life, I think the challenge itself is probably more of a detriment than it is a positive. So if we're trying to distinguish the different things, so like maybe you lost weight, or on the scale it said this, but you were so caught up in the lean body mass or the fat mass indexes. Firstly, remember, you're not on a research grade scale. You probably haven't standardized a lot of the testing as well. So that's going to come back and be just like don't pay too much attention to that. And that's where they get you. That's where they try to pull you in, because they know that this is really not that accurate, and then they can just tell you whatever story that you want to hear. So if you're more aware of it, hopefully you'll become more aware. If I've just ruined some people's fantasies, I'm sorry, but I think there are more important things that we should be focusing on as the result of a challenge, instead of focusing on weight loss, fat mass loss, and muscle gain. I think we should just be looking at, how do we feel? How are our clothes feeling? Are we actually going towards something that we think is going to be beneficial for our overall longevity? And do we enjoy doing this? If it's fun and you're not beating yourself up for doing something that's great for your body, then heck yeah. Heck yeah. So anyway, that's where we're at, and that's kind of the first of my pet peeves when it comes to the entire fitness industry. Is a lot of people take advantage of those insecurities of different people. A lot of people are gonna feel like they're failures, even though they're doing something that overall is really good for their health. Like, we're not taking blood markers, we're not taking blood pressure, they're just taking weight. So the overall health of that person, and actually how they feel, and maybe socially, or maybe they have more confidence because they're actually being able to do these different activities. Maybe they can tie their shoelace, maybe they can hang out their washing without pain. That's all the stuff that goes missing in all of this. So that's where I'm at. I'm a physical activity just fucking frother. I froth it, but more for the opportunities that it gives other people in terms of exploring themselves, in terms of finding out what it is that they properly enjoy, and in terms of not having to limit the amount of things that they can do because they have pain, or because they have a fear of falling, or not being able to complete a different activity. So that was 15 minutes more than I was hoping to talk about this little intro, but I think it's very necessary, and I think a lot of people are going to hear that and maybe be a bit more kind to themselves. And that's what this whole podcast is about. It's about being a bit more compassionate. But we're about to get into it. Thank you for joining me. All right, here we go. We are going to be talking about being angry better. So basically, this all came up because, just listen to me, all right? Listen, hear me out. I was at the Chemist warehouse, or bargain warehouse, whatever the one is, that is the rip-off of the Dan Carter one. But Dan Carter's not on the ads anymore, so I don't know who they're actually getting. And I was in an aisle looking for some stuff, mostly for my skin, because you have to use really, we know the eczema gist, we know the eczema stuff. And this lady was behind me, and instead of asking me to move out of the way, she kind of shoved me. And then she looked back at me and continued to walk. And it's the same thing that happened at the supermarket, if you guys follow my story, but I went through this whole wave of emotion of just like so much anger, just like, why the heck did you do that, to I feel really bad for you, and I wonder how many relationships you actually have of people who like you, and just a whole bunch of things, because she was then nasty to the people who were at the counter as well. So I don't know if she had a bad day, or if this is just how she is. She's entitled to a lot of different things, but for me, I felt like cursing her. I felt not cursing at her, like saying swear words. I wanted to, put a hex on it. I wanted to, go through it and just do some sort of guru wisdom. And I've been doing more yoga and doing that with a candle lit. So I'm getting, 4 steps closer to seancery, witchcraft, black magic, Voldemort, Putin. And basically, in that time, I realized just how far I've come in terms of controlling anger. I didn't internalize it and say that she did that because I was in the way. I'm such an idiot. Why would I even stand in that way? And I didn't even think or go through the overall process. Could she have done something better? All I thought was that I'm really sad for her. I'm sad that that's how she has to react, because there's going to be a time where someone doesn't take it as kindly as me, and just gives her what they think that she deserves. But part of that reminded me of different things that have made me angry in the past, and just my evolution of anger over a very long time, from being this guy who only believed that I was a short-fused person, and that I could just get angry because that's just the nature of who I am. But then I realized that was a very fixed-minded way of me being, and I believe there are a lot of people who would put a lot of activity down, or a lot of behaviors that people have, they would put it down to that's just how they are. Now, the problem that I have with that now that I look back at it, is that I didn't give myself any chance to grow or to become better, because I just believed that was innately something part of me. But as I've seen over some time, talking with different counselors and being able to get through it, that's my first kind of trigger, is for me to just get angry at things, and for me to blast, and for me to, break stuff, and to shout and to scream. Now, there are a lot of people who are just going to be like, Matt, you're so zen. That's the thing, is I've become zen because I've realized that being that angry is not really conducive to a lot of things. So what I wanted to do was talk to you about, what are the triggers of anger. And I can't tell you your triggers, but what we can do is go through this together. And the first, maybe think of concrete instances where you felt anger come over you, and what is it that you did? What are the steps that you took to then get from angry to being content again? How long did it take you? And compared to other times in the past, is it getting better or is it getting worse? Are you starting to notice your triggers a little bit more? But I'll give you a little bit of a rundown about anger. And this came from reading a book actually last year, that I talked about the how to control negative emotions about, but this is going a little bit more deep into the specific emotion that is anger. Right, so basically, we all know that I came on here and I spoke about a specific air fryer incident that happened last year. Now, that's probably the most hogged out I have been in a very long time. I threw the air fryer, I just got mad, I said fuck really loud. I had to drive away because I was really nervous about what I would actually do. Now, because of this, what tends to happen is that you look like the bad person because you've had someone who has transgressed against something that you believed in, or something that, was highly valuable to you. But to them, it doesn't look as big. So you look like a dickhead, and I look like a dickhead, and everyone kind of who was in that, besides the people that I obviously came on and spoke to on the podcast about, they were, just like, he didn't have to react like that. It was a very, and in my mind, I think I have every right to react like that because you just destroyed my property. But obviously, in terms of being able to resolve this, I look like the bad person. I end up having to be the person who apologized, even though it was my property that was broken. Now, with all of this that is going on, maybe we won't get better, right? We won't get better. It's not that we're never going to not get angry again, because as we see, it's a physiological response. But maybe we will just get better at being angry, and that's what we're going for. And I'm glad that I feel this, and I'm glad that I actually have the ability to have these emotions, because what I'm starting to realize is that we have a bunch of people who are just so apathetic. Like, they just can't feel anything at all. And the more that I talk to different people about it, and the more people who are contacting me about the podcast and listening to it, there are people who have been, neglected of emotions, either because they've been on some sort of medication or just because they haven't wanted to face them because they're scared that if they feel them, like I've spoken about in the past couple of episodes, that it's actually going to get them into trouble. Now, remember what I said. Most emotions are helpful. They're there for us to help start to realize whether something is good or bad for us. But the anger and rage now, that probably does more harm than it does good. Now, firstly, the thing that you don't want to do, and that's something that I would do all the time, is when I would get angry, when I finally realized I was angry, I'd get more angry because I was like, I hate being angry. I hate that I'm an angry guy. And then I'd get mad at myself. So whatever triggered me would then trigger me again because I realized, okay, I tell myself I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be this angry person. And then when I get angry, I get mad at myself for being angry. So we can kind of see just how unproductive that is. But the good thing is that I was aware that I was angry. So basically, anger comes from, obviously, now we're in a different place, right? We're in a place where someone gives you a Facebook comment that you don't like, someone attacks you on Instagram, and we get mad. We get so mad. But anger actually came from you making some sort of change to action. So it's a call to action. It's bringing your body, it's mobilizing all of the different fuels so that your body can get up and do something. Usually that sort of anger is so that you can fight a tiger, run away from a lion, all that stuff that actually stops you from dying. That sort of stuff, kind of important stuff, not people telling you or not people trolling you. But I guess that's where we've come to, because we're still running on caveman technology. So our hardware, we are hardwired for those, it wasn't that long ago that we were trying to fend for ourselves. And some of us are actually trying to get back to there. But that's why it comes into play. So actually, we should be super happy that we have that, because this is the stuff that's going to get us out of trouble if we do ever get into trouble. The only problem is now you probably cannot run away from your boss if they are getting mad at you, but you also cannot fight your boss if you feel like they're trying to attack you and take your life, which some of us do get into. And I have been an angry person. I have been an angry academic, and the types of things that I have seen over time, and it's something that I spoke to my sister about, is that being that angry person in a place like this, when you're trying to be an activist or a social figure for change, the more angry you get, can you ever explain being that angry? I guess so, because someone burnt my air fryer. But the more angry you get, like I said with that example, the less likely there is to be positive change, because no one wants to get behind you. But then also your ability to harm someone or to harm someone's feelings because of how you are, and the ability for you to actually perceive what's going on and for you to be able to properly step back and make the proper action is going to be very limited, because all you're doing is seeing red. So if we were to think about all of the people back in the day who wanted social change, and if they just came out firing, probably they wouldn't have got as far with their movement as possible, or as something where people would get behind and start to support. That's the whole idea, I guess, behind peaceful protests, which I think has been shifted a little bit now that we're seeing what's happening in Wellington. But I don't want to make this too political, but I do think it's a little bit silly. So to actually have that change, and a lot of us who would come out swinging. When I first started as an academic, I came out swinging, I'm like, put your hands up. I don't like the way that this person does. I don't like the way that that person does. But what we can do is actually start to become a bit more strategic with the anger that we feel. If this is an anger that we're starting to get, we can start to see that that's because we see some sort of injustice. Now, nothing makes me more mad than injustice, because I see it every day. I've lived it for most of my life. And now I'm working in a place which continually reinforces it, but then also tells us that we're overreacting if we get mad at it. Now, if we are to overreact and get mad at it, we then lose our case, and when we lose our stake in the fight. If you're a bit more strategic and you start to see that you can game the system, and okay, this anger comes up because I understand that it is an injustice, but when I calm myself and I control that anger, I can start to see how we can move around and actually strategize so that we can put it back on them and see that because of this anger, we can make this sort of change, but not coming out in an angry and forceful, hulked out way. Now, short story, I do love the Hulk, so I would love to be like my role model, but at the same time, trying to achieve Hulk status is probably not going to get us to where we need to be. So I think the first thing is being able to identify that, okay, it's okay to be angry. Anger comes because we are, we see some sort of injustice. We see that either one, the expectations of the world do not meet the expectations that you had for different people. So making that clear at the forefront, that you're aware, okay, someone hurt me because my expectations weren't met. And that's happens all the time, right? Some people don't, we don't communicate well, and that's a whole story in itself. We don't communicate well, so someone doesn't understand that they're actually, imposing on what it is that you had of the world. So, sometimes this happens in your flat all the time, right? There might be someone who never does their dishes or only does their dishes at the end of the day, but because it doesn't fit how you do your schedule, you start to think that this person is personally doing it to get on your nerves. They're not doing that. Have you ever had the conversation? Have you ever let them know what how you prefer things? No, you just start building up the thing and you're just like, they actually hate me. So every time they do it, you feel that aggression start to come up. And that's because someone has gone against your expectations. Also, it could be hurting you, like something that someone does or something that someone says. We're not all mind readers. We don't know how you are as a person. So sometimes maybe someone says something to you or they imply different things and you've never told them that actually is a trigger for you. So you're starting to get mad. You're starting to feel it. And that's fine. You're getting angry because someone has hurt you. Someone has gone against the expectations that you had of the world. And then the last one is also, we are fiends for social connection. So sometimes, if someone hurts you, if someone mocks you, if someone trolls you, if someone starts feeling like they're going to do something that's going to take away your kind of prestige or your status or maybe that ability for you to socially connect with different people, that's going to make you angry, right? So all of these different things are going to come up. Now, I think also the first thing that we need to do is realize that we are hardwired for that connection. So anytime that we feel like we've been disrespected, these are the sorts of feelings that are going to come out. Now, anger manifests itself in multiple ways, right? So I've said anger, and you're probably all getting that same, like, okay, yeah, I'm getting red, my heart rate's starting to spike, my breath starts to shorten a little bit, and my muscles tense up. That's good. You're starting to feel it in your body, and that will probably come as whatever the action is happening to you. So we can already find, okay, that's happening. Let's start to work with what we've got. And hopefully what will happen is that we can identify it so much earlier, or we can start to see behavioral patterns of people who start to do stuff that we know gets us into that position. So even before we get triggered, we can start to say, okay, maybe not. Maybe that's not what the place that we need to be. But another thing is that we also need to see and be a bit more specific about what it is that we are feeling, right? Am I frustrated because I feel like I cannot communicate this properly with someone? Or am I just so stressed and worn out that actually I'm just getting a little bit overwhelmed here and it's manifesting as anger because I just feel like nothing is going my way? So there are just a bunch of things that we can be a bit more specific about, because if we just say, I'm angry, then, it's like, okay, are you aggressive or are you going to then sit back a little bit because you don't want to? Those are the things. Like, am I annoyed? Maybe I am annoyed. I'm annoyed a lot of the time. If I haven't eaten or slept, and then if I have eaten and I have slept and I'm still feeling this way, then I know, okay, it's not that I'm hangry or that I'm tired or exhausted. Maybe it's this sort of thing. So that's where we can start thinking about the reactions that we can have to this sort of thing. Now, this is something, I remember this was a huge kick in the balls when I first heard it. And the reason why I want to bring this up now is because it's true that this can be happening sometimes. And now people talk about toxic people talk about manipulative people, and people, I don't think realize that they are those people until you get it laid out in front of you. So when I was angry a lot of the time, basically it was because I was a brat and I wouldn't get what I wanted. And then when I would get what I wanted, somehow it would be fine. So I think being able to discern between the two, it kind of upset me when I found out about it, and that was what I would do, because I put a lot of people in a weird position. It puts a lot of people in a position where they feel like they have to do something because they're worried about how you're going to react, and that's the problem and that's why I started hating my anger, is because I would get into a blind rage and I'd hurt someone just by the things that I said or the things that I would do to myself. And that's not okay. It's really not okay, and that's manipulative. So just things to be aware of for yourself. When you do get angry and you do get the thing that you're asking for, does it resolve? Are you angry after that point? Because if it kind of comes right, bam, just like a baby, it's probably more on the manipulative side of things, and that's something that we should pretty much be. That's weaponizing, and it's not good, and it's really quite devastating for the people who have to witness it. But also, if you don't see that you're doing that yourself, it's just going to be something that you continue to do, and it puts a lot of people in very hurt stages, and they just don't know how to act, or they don't know how to react to you, because that's how you've been. And I acknowledge that. I've never been, I haven't been a good person, and I've done that before. And now that I'm aware of it, I'm absolutely disgusted. So obviously I'm a bit more aware, and I try to feel those triggers before they come up. But that actual action itself, if I am angry now, it's more on a physiological basis. So what is it? Maybe you seem like you want something, and then when you feel like you get it, you're still boiling, you're still mad, and something else is happening. So those are the sorts of things where you have proper anger that is manifesting within you. And most of the time, it's because someone maybe hurt your feelings, and deep thoughts of trauma or patterns of behavior. And also, I think sociologically, anger is something, especially for us men, okay, men listening, or if you're with your partner, and because I do have majority females who listen to the show, and this was meant to be a male help group, but maybe, yeah, I think we've been socialized into thinking that being angry is normal, right? Talking about our feelings, I've said this multiple times, but that was never okay. But we're allowed to manifest it in anger because you're aggressive, you're the whole machismo of the whole thing. You're macho. It's mad. You're angry. You break something. Oh, there's just testosterone. He's just being a man. But what I think it is that we just have so much internal built trauma that it just it just comes out sometimes, and you just, some little thing triggers it, and it's a whole build up of all these bunch of things. So that's why I'm coming back to the fact that we need to be talking about this a little bit more, and we also need to be identifying it a little bit more as well. So things that we can do. Here are the positives of it. So I actually listened back to an episode that I did of Stanley Pont, which was number 16 of my interviews. So that was 2 years ago. And he was saying that, and I backed it up, feelings only last for about 90 seconds. So if you can just take that time to surf that urge of feeling, do I feel this madness? What's actually happening? Before you say anything, take that 90 seconds, have a few breaths, and then the rush of intense thoughts will come through you, and then it would dissipate because you start to pay attention to it. I'm taking this 90 seconds. Why do I feel this way? Okay, I hear you. I'm listening. Okay, you're upset. Can we go on? Is this going to stop us from doing anything else that we can do? I'm here with you. I'm listening. You're basically being your own best friend, right? So someone who, when you're really, really mad, when you get a little toddler who's just absolutely mad, you just sit there and you're just like, oh, I see you're mad. And then if they want to say anything, you're just like, I understand. You're okay. That makes sense. I see why you'd be mad. And you just let it know, okay, it's okay for you to feel that way. It's okay for you to feel pent up. But can we go through with the next stuff? So that first one is what you get. Of course, it's just going to hit you physiologically. Bam. Okay, I don't know why this is coming up. Your second thought is what you can control. Is this a bad thing? Is this a good thing? I don't know. But what I can control is that I'm feeling this. You just be aware that you're feeling it, and I need to take some time out. And then that first action that you make once you are angry is also what you can control. We sometimes can't control the circumstances around us because that's just going to happen, and some of those things are going to trigger us. But then how we respond, like I've said multiple times, is what we can control, and it becomes within our wheelhouse to be able to do so. So take that time, have a little breath, and I remember the guy said, delay is the best remedy for anger. So just take your time, because you don't want to say those things that then put you in a deeper hole that cause more frustration in the future. But you also don't want to hurt people. That's the worst that you can do. And especially for people like us who like to help people and who like to be of service, if you hurt people, it takes away from, those feelings of you being a valuable member of society, because you feel like that's what gives you your value. And that's okay. So last thing I want to say here is just bringing the breath into it. I'm so sorry that I have to, and everyone's going to be like, oh, you've been doing too much yoga, you're so much more aware. But we know that as part of the vagal nerve and vagal tone in terms of parasympathetic. So parasympathetic is your rest and digest, which means that everything's slowing down. Your heart rate starts to come down, blood pressure comes down because of that, and you actually can be a bit more aware of what's going on. And that is regulated by the exhale. So if you can just take a few breaths, but then extend your exhale. So maybe you could do that in that 90 seconds of feeling really mad. Just extend your exhale and actually be there. So counting 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you can only focus on your breath. And in that time, your heart rate's starting to come down. But then you do need to have that discussion with yourself as in what was the main reason that kind of brought this in. Right, so that's pretty much what I wanted to speak about today. I try to keep it nice and brief, and I hope there's a couple of things that you can take away from this. Is still, we need to talk about our feelings. Still, we need to look at the different things that we've done in terms of when we were angry, and what types of things came out. And then from that, be a bit more aware of the triggers that are starting to show, okay, maybe we are getting mad, this is something that I need to do. But then also be a bit more specific. What are the situations that make you mad? Are there any ways that you can avoid those, or are there any ways that you can do it a little bit better? There's nothing worse than having to hide from life because we're scared that we're going to get these feelings and we don't know how to deal with them. So I'm not saying it's going to get better, and I'm not saying that we're going to just become people who never get mad, because I've learned all these techniques for how long, and I still, see something that I don't like and I just get mad. But I've gotten better at how I actually be able to control those different things. So anyway, next week we have another awesome interview. So I'm trying to keep these interviews rocking. I've managed to avoid COVID for now. I'm not sure for how much longer because the cases here in Dunedin are growing. But please be kind to each other. Just love each other. And next solo episode, I will be doing a Q&A based on the questions that people sent me in. If you have any more questions, please send it through. If you can, please share the podcast around. I put a lot of time into these, and it's been almost 2 years now, so we've built a really cool community, but I'd like to see where else we can take this. So anyway, I love you all. Thank you so much for riding with me, and I hope you take some serious gold from this one. But anyway, those are kisses, by the way. Love you.